in a world forgotten by time, where empires rose and fell. Sleepy Empire invites you to drift away, one story at a time. Why you wouldn't last a day in the Byzantine Empire. A gentle welcome. You are no longer in your bed. There is no glowing screen beside you, no hum of a refrigerator in the background, no blinking streetlights outside your window. Instead, you are lying on something firm, a straw mattress. It itches a little. It smells faintly of oil, sweat, and old wood. You don't know how you got here, but outside your open window you hear bells, not the soft, digital kind. Real bells, clanging from a church tower. Birds circle overhead, and far below, the rumble of carts, feet, and voices rise like steam from stone streets. A breeze carries something strange, the scent of fish, burnt olive oil, incense. You're not dreaming. You've just woken up in the Byzantine Empire, and you're about to find out why you wouldn't last a single day here. But don't worry. You'll get through this night if you fall asleep before morning comes. So let's begin. Let's take a slow walk through the past. Waking in Constantinople. The year is 1024. The golden era of the Byzantine Empire is fading, but not yet gone. You're in Constantinople, the grand capital, known to its people simply as the city. Your bed is a crude frame stuffed with straw, draped in a rough woolen blanket. The walls are stone, cold in the morning, covered in soot. There is no glass on your window, just wooden shutters you forgot to close. Outside, the city is already awake. You rise slowly, barefoot on a gritty stone floor. Everything smells lived in, old, slightly damp. A clay pot in the corner holds yesterday's water. You drink it. It's lukewarm, tastes a little like metal. No toothpaste, no toothbrush, no running water. You splash your face with what little is left. You're not sure it helped. Your clothes are folded at the foot of your bed. You reach for them. A tunic dyed once but faded. It smells faintly of smoke and wool. You slip it over your head. The cloth is coarse, scratchy, no socks, just leather sandals, brittle and worn. You lace them slowly. The laces snap. You tie them in a knot and hope for the best. Now you're dressed like a Byzantine peasant, ready for your first and likely last day. The smell of the city. You step outside and are hit by a wave of smells. Wood smoke, cooked onions, unwashed bodies, the sea. It's overwhelming. There are no air filters, no deodorant, no plumbing to speak of. The streets are narrow and uneven, paved in worn slabs of stone. Moss grows between them. Garbage clogs the corners. Children dart past you barefoot, chasing a dog. A woman pours something foul-smelling from a bucket into the gutter. You sidestep it, barely. You pass the fish market, wooden stalls groan under the weight of salted cod, dried eels, and sea urchins. Everything is loud. The merchants shout. The seagulls scream. There are no quiet cars, no headphones, only clamor. But above the chaos stands something beautiful, Hagia Sophia. Its massive dome glows in the morning light, shimmering with gold. You stare. You forget the smell for a moment. You forget the noise. And for a breath or two, you feel small. Very small. Breakfast, if you can find it. Your stomach growls. Time to find food. You follow the crowd toward the forum, hoping someone is selling something edible. There's a vendor with a cart full of flatbread, half burnt on one side. You reach for one, then realize you have no coins. Not a solidus, not a follies, not even a scrap of copper. You look around. A beggar eyes you from a wall. He nods slowly. You're one of him now. You mumble something, hoping he'll offer advice. He doesn't. He just lies back and pulls his cloak over his face. Eventually, a baker offers you a crust of bread in exchange for sweeping ashes from his oven. You say yes. It takes 20 minutes. Your hands are black. Your eyes sting. But when you finally eat the crust, it's the best thing you've ever tasted. Hard, chewy, slightly sour. You sit on a stone step and savor it like a feast. A dog eyes you. You toss him a crumb. He doesn't thank you. Nobody does. This is the Byzantine Empire. Everyone's too tired to say thank you. A job you don't understand. Someone shouts at you from across the square, a tall man in a leather apron. His forehead shines with sweat. "You there," he barks. "You speak Greek." You hesitate, then nod. "Good, we need hands." Suddenly you're a laborer. You're helping push a wooden cart uphill toward a construction site. Your muscles scream. The sun beats down. Your feet slip. Sandals were not made for this. The man slaps your back. Keep pushing, or you'll feel the whip like the last one. You don't ask what happened to the last one. You just push harder. By the time you're done, your tunic is soaked. Your hands are blistered. Your face is sunburned, and he pays you nothing. That was training, he says. Welcome to Byzantine labor laws. Religion is everywhere. You've only been here a few hours. Your stomach is still tight from hunger. Your shoulders ache from labor. And the sun is high above the shimmering dome of the Hagia Sophia. You try to sit and rest, but rest doesn't last long in Constantinople. A sudden hush falls over the street. The crowd slows. Faces turn toward the eastern skyline. The bells begin to ring again. Not the same morning clang, they're slower now, deeper. A procession is coming. Incense and icons. At first you hear nothing but the bells. Then, like a tide coming in, you hear the low hum of voices. Chanting. Unison. Slow and solemn. Around the corner they appear. Men in long robes of gold and red, holding icons high above their heads. Painted faces of Christ, the Virgin Mary, and saints you don't recognize. Their expressions are blank, eternal. Their eyes, wide and deep, follow you. Thuribles swing from chains, wafting thick plumes of incense into the air. It stings your eyes, but you don't dare cough. Not here. A priest walks past. His beard is long and gray. His eyes are tired but serene. He sprinkles holy water from a silver cross as he mutters something in Greek. You don't understand the words, but the crowd around you crosses themselves and lowers their heads. So you do too. The man beside you whispers, "They say a relic is being moved, a bone of St. Euphemia." You glance up. There it is, a golden casket held aloft by 6 sweating men, surrounded by candles, draped in silks. A single finger bone inside, polished and wrapped in velvet, a saint's memory preserved forever. You don't believe in magic. But for a moment, standing in the press of the crowd, breathing in incense and old hope, you wonder if maybe they do. A city built on faith. Constantinople isn't just a city with churches, it's a city made of them. The Hagia Sophia towers over the skyline like a second sun, but it's only one of dozens. Walk 2 streets, you'll find another, smaller but no less sacred. Icons in every corner, flickering candles, faded frescoes of saints watching from crumbling walls. Every home has a prayer corner. Every meal begins with a blessing. Every misfortune is a punishment. Every blessing is a test. You pass a woman kneeling on the street, whispering prayers to an image of the Theotokos. She doesn't notice you. She barely notices the crowd around her. Her lips move fast. Her fingers clutch a string of wooden beads. She could be praying for her son, for her husband, for her soul. You don't ask. Some things in this empire are private, even when they're public. Heresy and whispers. Later, while drinking water from a cracked clay jug, you hear a man mutter to another, "Careful what you say near the cisterns. There are ears underground." You raise an eyebrow. The man notices. "Don't ask questions," he says. "The emperor's eyes go further than his armies." You smile awkwardly. He doesn't smile back. You're starting to understand something uncomfortable. In this empire, faith is law. But law is fear, and fear, that's everywhere too. Heresy isn't just disagreement. It's treason. People have vanished for less than a poorly phrased opinion on the Trinity. You remember the relic procession, how still the crowd was, how carefully they crossed themselves, how no one looked the icons in the eyes too long. It wasn't just reverence, it was survival. That night in a pilgrim's shelter. As the sun begins to dip behind the city walls, you find yourself near the Church of the Holy Apostles. A small wooden sign, half-burnt, reads, Xi Epsilon Nu Omega Nu Alpha Sigma, Xenonas. A pilgrim's shelter. You're not a pilgrim, but you're not anything else either. So you go in. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of sweat, straw, and oil lamps. You're shown to a corner space by a weary nun with a voice like sandpaper. She says nothing, just points. You sit on the floor, stretch your legs, try not to move too fast. Your muscles still burn. A boy nearby begins to sing softly to himself. A hymn, maybe. You don't know the words. Someone else is praying again. A whisper this time, in Latin or maybe Armenian. You can't tell. But the rhythm is the same as earlier, soft. repetitive, gentle, the kind of thing that gets into your bones. You close your eyes. And even though you're surrounded by strangers in a world of strange gods, you feel something warm settle into your chest. Not peace, exactly, but something close. Night falls on Constantinople. You might think the city would grow quiet now, but it doesn't, not really. Constantinople at night is like a candle left burning, soft, flickering, dangerous if you're not careful. The streets after dark. You step outside the pilgrim shelter after nightfall. The sky is dark blue velvet, stars shimmer above the domes, and the streets are emptier, but not silent. There are footsteps, whispers, the occasional bark of a dog. Oil lamps hang from iron hooks on buildings, casting weak halos of orange light. But most of the streets are swallowed in shadow. You keep to the side, walking slowly. Every sudden sound feels too loud. Somewhere nearby, someone coughs. Someone else laughs, then silence again. A brush with trouble. You turn a corner too quickly. A man is there, tall in a dark cloak. He blocks your path. For a second, neither of you speaks. Then he steps aside. You keep walking, faster now, you don't look back. This isn't a city with police. There are guards, yes, but only in certain places. Near the palaces, near the churches. Not here. Here you're alone. And after dark, even the most faithful men can forget God. You remember hearing stories, whispers in the bathhouse earlier, robberies, drunken fights, even bodies dumped in the cisterns. You thought they were exaggerations. Now you're not so sure. Sleep in a foreign world. Eventually, you find an alcove behind an abandoned cart. It smells faintly of vinegar, but it's dry. You curl into yourself, your tunic still damp from sweat and fear. You try not to move. Every creak of the city feels like it's aimed at you, but slowly, slowly, your heartbeat calms. You count breaths. Listen to the distant waves slapping the shore. A dog howls far away, your eyes close. And somehow, despite everything, you fall asleep. Not because you feel safe, but because your body has no choice. This city is older than your language. It doesn't care if you survive the night, it just keeps going. The morning bell again. You awake to bells. Again, your back is sore, your mouth is dry, your legs are stiff, but you're alive. And in the Byzantine Empire, that's enough. For now. Disease, fire, and the unforgiving city. You survived your first night in Constantinople. Barely. But just as you're beginning to think things might settle, the city reminds you who's in charge, because the biggest danger here isn't a thief's knife. It isn't hunger or bad sandals or even the emperor's spies. No, the biggest danger in the Byzantine Empire is everything else. Things you can't see, things you can't fight, things that crawl or burn or breathe through other people. The invisible killers. You don't know it yet, but your lungs are already in danger. Not from a sword, not from smoke, but from the man who coughed near you yesterday, or the child who wiped his nose on his sleeve before touching that loaf of bread, or the bucket of waste you stepped over near the cistern. You can't see it. No one can. But disease moves through the city like a shadow on the wind. Plague lives here. You overhear it first from a group of women washing clothes near the aqueduct. 2 more gone from the tannery, one mutters. Fever. No, buboes. You freeze. You've heard that word. You wish you hadn't. The plague of Justinian happened centuries ago, but echoes of it remain. And smaller outbreaks never really stopped. When someone coughs in a crowded street, others step away without making eye contact. You begin to notice how many people look pale, how many limp, how many avoid touching anything with their bare hands. You do the same. The water problem. You thought water would be a relief, but now it's another risk. The city's cisterns are ancient, vast underground reservoirs holding precious rainwater. They echo with the dripping sound of time, and sometimes the squeal of rats. You walk past one that's being cleaned. Workers lower baskets into the depths. They come up filled with black sludge. You don't ask what's in it. You already know it ends up in the same pots people drink from. Boiling helps. Sometimes. You make a mental note, drink only when you have no other choice, which in this empire is most of the time. The fire next time. But disease isn't the only thing that spreads in silence. There's another enemy here, one that arrives fast, roars loud, and leaves nothing behind. Fire. Most homes are made of wood, mud brick, or both. Roofs are thatched, candles are left burning. Ovens are built with stones that crack in heat, and in neighborhoods like yours, people live close. Too close. You first smell it in the afternoon. Smoke, acrid and dry, blowing from the west. A boy shouts something in Greek. You don't catch the words, but his face says enough. People begin to run, not everyone, just enough to make you nervous. You follow them uphill toward a square. There, from the edge of a low rooftop, you see it, flames, orange and hungry, leaping from one rooftop to the next. The fire licks at the skyline like it's starving. Screams echo from below. Someone throws a bucket of water. It does nothing. The fire doesn't care. It moves faster than people can run. Firefighting, the Byzantine way. There are no fire trucks, no hydrants, no organized brigade, only men with buckets, women with blankets, and the occasional monk flinging water from a church well. You try to help. You grab a clay jug, fill it at a public fountain, and rush to the alley where the smoke is thickest. By the time you arrive, your jug has cracked. It leaks. You pour what's left anyway. Steam rises, the wall hisses back at you. You've done nothing. But it was something. And in Constantinople, that's all you can do. The real cost of fire. Later, when the fire has burned itself out, choked by stone walls or sheer luck, you walk the edges of the damage. A shop is gone. A stable. An entire row of homes. People gather, dazed. Some weep. Some argue. One man stares at the ashes of what used to be a cart, blinking slowly. There are no insurance claims here. No aid stations, just neighbors and loss. You hear someone mutter, God's punishment. Another says, no, it was the baker. He left his oven burning again. Maybe it was both. Maybe it was neither. Does it matter? The fire is gone, but the damage is only beginning. That night, what you dream. You sleep outside again. There's no room in the pilgrim house tonight. Too many people displaced by smoke. You find a corner near a stone wall where the wind doesn't bite as hard. You lie down, close your eyes. And as you drift off, your brain, exhausted from fear, hunger, labor, and flame, gives you the strangest dream. In it, you're walking through the city again. Only it's quiet. Too quiet. No shouting, no bells, no smells, just stone stretching endlessly. You call out, no one answers. You turn to run, but there's nowhere to go. The wall's close in. A fire rises behind you. You breathe in smoke and wake up coughing. It was only a dream. This time. The Emperor's world. Power, gold, and paranoia. You've survived a full day in the Byzantine Empire. Barely. You've swept ash from an oven for breakfast. You've pushed a cart until your arms burned. You've prayed beside strangers. You've coughed near the ashes of a neighborhood that didn't make it through the fire. And now you're about to brush against something even more dangerous. Not fire, not famine, not even plague. No, this danger wears robes of silk. It walks on marble. It signs decrees with golden ink and smiles while ordering your exile. Today, you learn what it means to live under the emperor. A glimpse of majesty. You hear about it by accident. A boy in the market drops a basket of olives. As they roll across the stones, he shouts, "He's coming! The Basilius! He's coming down the Mies!" The Mies. The grand avenue of Constantinople. A wide street where parades march, armies return, and rumors sprint ahead of reality. You follow the boy because everyone does. There's no question, no hesitation. When the emperor comes out of the palace, people go watch, or they disappear, depending on the mood of the court. The royal caravan. You reach the edge of the Mies just in time to see it. Golden horses, soldiers with breastplates that shimmer in the sun, purple banners embroidered with double-headed eagles, and behind them a gilded carriage, painted panels, velvet curtains fluttering in the breeze. You can't see his face. But you know he's in there. The Basilius, the emperor, the man chosen by God, crowned in the Hagia Sophia and guarded by swords and silence. The crowd bows low. Some kneel. You do the same. You don't know what would happen if you didn't, and you don't want to find out. The emperor sees all. As the procession rolls past, a man near you mutters something under his breath. Too loud. A soldier hears. In 3 steps, the man is pulled from the crowd, dragged behind a column. The curtain of men swallows him. You don't see what happens. No one says a word. When the carriage passes, the crowd exhales. Some cheer, but it sounds uncertain. The emperor has moved on, but his presence lingers, like the memory of fire. The palace is not for you. Later that day, you wander near the palace gates. You don't plan to. You just drift that way. The great palace stands like a sleeping god, layered in marble and shadow. Walls 20 feet high. Gates of bronze. 1,000 rooms or more. They say inside there are mosaics made of stone so fine it looks like water. Golden lions that move and roar by hidden gears. Silken carpets from Persia. Peacocks that strut like guards. You'll never see them. People like you don't go inside, unless you're a servant, a eunuch, a prisoner, or worse, someone about to be seen. What happens to those who speak? In a nearby tavern, you sit to rest your feet. Your legs ache, your shoulders sting. You sip watered wine that tastes like vinegar. It's terrible, but it's wet and cold. A man beside you is whispering. He has a scar down one cheek and his fingers tremble as he speaks. You don't understand, he says to no one in particular. He has eunuchs who read lips from rooftops. Courtiers who smell disloyalty like bloodhounds. He even has monks who report directly to the throne. He laughs, a soft, broken sound. Say the wrong thing about the wrong saint in the wrong tone, and the next morning you wake up blind or in exile or not at all. He drinks. You don't ask for more details. You don't need them. The bureaucracy of fear. What you do learn, slowly and from everyone, is that power here isn't like it is where you come from. It isn't loud. It's quiet, precise, patient. It flows through parchment. It hides behind seals and scrolls. The Byzantine court is a machine, oiled by paranoia, fueled by secrecy, maintained by ceremony so ancient no one remembers why it started. One wrong word, a note in the wrong script. A missed bow to the wrong portrait. It can cost you everything. And still, they say the emperor dines with golden forks. Wears robes so heavy with embroidery he must be helped to walk. Bathes in water perfumed with lavender and crushed rose petals. He never smells the city's smoke, never sees the blisters on your feet, never eats bread with ash still on it. He is Byzantium, and you are not. Later that night, dreams of purple. That night, you find shelter in the shadows of a monastery wall. You sleep curled in your tunic, now stiff with sweat and dust. You dream of purple, not a color. A room. Marble. Silk. A child being born, the purple room of the great palace, where emperors are born, where destiny is stitched into skin before the first breath is taken. You dream you are there, not as an emperor but as a servant, holding towels, watching history emerge slippery and screaming. A nurse says the baby has the mark, the sign of the chosen. You lean in to see, but the baby opens its eyes and they're yours. You wake up. Cold, confused, and suddenly aware you're still very much in the streets. A city of strangers, languages, secrets, and shadows. Morning comes again to Constantinople, though this city's dawn is never quiet or simple. The streets wake slowly but surely, each corner humming with a different voice. Constantinople is a city of strangers, a city of many tongues. The Babel of Constantinople. You wander through the marketplace again, your senses on high alert. Greek, of course, is everywhere, the language of the empire. But it's far from the only one. You hear merchants calling out in Latin, the language of the West, spoken by traders and diplomats. Nearby, Armenians haggle in a harsh, clipped tongue. You catch fragments of Syriac from merchants haggling over spices. There's a group of Slavs chatting loudly near the fountain, their words unfamiliar but melodic. And behind it all, whispers in Persian and Arabic. Merchants from faraway lands, strangers from the East. Constantinople is a crossroads, a hub where Europe and Asia meet, collide, and entwine. Secrets in every shadow. But beneath the market's chaos is something quieter, more dangerous. You begin to notice how eyes watch you, not just the curious children or the tired street vendors. Other eyes, sharp, calculating, hidden, spies. They move through the crowd like shadows. Not all are paid by the emperor. Some work for rival nobles, some for foreign kings, some for enemies you don't even know exist. You catch a man drop a folded note into a pocket. Another exchanges a glance with someone behind a stall, and a woman brushes past you, pressing a coin into your hand before disappearing. The language of secrets. People speak carefully here. Words are weapons. You overhear a conversation between two men. The general is restless. And the eunuch's spies are everywhere. The emperor's health is failing. If the basilius dies, all will change. You don't understand all of it, but you understand the fear. Change in Constantinople is never gentle. The alley of whisperers. At night, you find yourself drawn to a narrow alley behind the market. Lanterns cast flickering shadows on damp stone walls. Here, merchants, spies, and informants gather. You overhear rumors whispered so quietly they might be wind. The Persian ambassador has been seen meeting with the city guard captain. There's talk of a coup in the western provinces. A new heresy spreads in the monasteries. They say it's poison. You press yourself against a wall, heart racing. In this city, knowledge is currency, but sometimes knowledge is death. The strange figures. You spot an old man sitting by a fire, face hidden under a hood. He hums softly. His fingers trace strange symbols on a battered scroll. People avoid him, crossing to the other side. A woman whispers to her child, "That's a sorcerer." Magic and superstition thrive in the cracks of the empire. Sometimes the line between saint and witch is thinner than a breath. You wonder, is this city's real power in its rulers or in the secrets kept in dark corners? Bridges between worlds. Despite the fear and suspicion, the city thrives. Merchants bring silk and spices. Artists paint icons that glow with holy light. Philosophers debate ideas in dimly lit courtyards. You watch a young scholar in a dusty robe reading from a parchment. You don't understand his words, but you admire his focus. In Constantinople, even the smallest person can hold a piece of the empire's vast puzzle. Night again, and the city's heartbeat. As the sun sets, the voices slow. But the city doesn't sleep. Some come alive only after dark. You walk past taverns filled with laughter and wine. Along the docks, fishermen mend nets under moonlight. In shadowed doorways, deals are made, alliances forged. You realize the empire is not just bricks and politics. It's a living, breathing organism, full of hopes, fears, and secrets, and you, stranger, are part of its pulse. The food you'd eat, or not. After days wandering the streets and shadows of Constantinople, your body demands something new, something you can feel in your stomach instead of just fear or exhaustion. Food. But in the Byzantine Empire, eating is never simple. Your options depend on your status, your coins, and your luck. Today, you'll see what a day's meals really look like for someone like you. Morning hunger, the first meal. You wake early to the sound of merchants setting up their stalls. Your stomach rumbles, reminding you it's time to eat. You make your way to a small bakery near the Forum. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of baking bread and warm flour. The baker is a stout woman with flour-dusted hands. She smiles briefly, then shakes her head. "No money," she asks. You shake your head. "No bread." You're reminded how precious coins are. Instead, you accept a small crust of bread, hard and barely baked. It tastes dry with just a hint of sourness from the fermented dough. You sit on a stone bench, breaking the crust in small bites. It's not much, but it's food. What do Byzantines drink? By your side, you see people drinking thick, dark wine diluted with water. You're offered a small cup. It tastes strange, sour and bitter. They call it Greek wine. Some mix it with honey or spices. Others drink it plain. Water is precious and often unsafe. You remember the dirty cisterns and the warnings from strangers. Tea isn't known here. Coffee won't come for centuries. Instead, people drink wine, watered down or not. For hydration, for courage, and sometimes to dull the pain of daily life. The midday meal, soup and stew. The sun climbs higher, burning off the morning chill. You find yourself near a market stall with large pots simmering over open fires. Steam rises, carrying the smells of onions, garlic, and herbs. A man ladles out a thin soup. It's made of lentils, barley, and whatever vegetables are cheap and available. You watch as people line up with clay bowls, dipping bread into the stew. You're lucky someone gives you a small bowl. It's warm and salty. The lentils are mushy but filling. The broth tastes of fish sauce, a fermented concoction called garum, which is pungent and foreign to your tongue. You eat slowly, savoring each spoonful. The luxury of meat. You hear stories of lavish feasts in the palaces, roasted boar, honey-glazed chicken, imported spices, golden plates piled high with figs and nuts. But for most people, meat is a rare luxury. It's expensive, reserved for festivals, religious celebrations, or the very wealthy. You notice dogs scavenging near refuse piles, fighting over discarded bones. The smell of roasting meat is tantalizing and cruel. The bread of life. Bread is a staple. It comes in many forms, thick, heavy loaves for the poor, made of barley or rye mixed with bits of bran. Fine white bread for the wealthy, made from sifted wheat flour. Flatbreads, sometimes flavored with herbs or oil. You buy a thin flatbread from a street vendor. It's warm, slightly oily, and has a texture between cracker and pancake. You break pieces off, dipping them in olive oil and a smear of cheese if you're lucky. Cheese and olives, simple staples. You find a small vendor selling salted cheese, firm and crumbly. It's not creamy like the cheeses you know. It's salty and dry, meant to last through the hot days. Beside it, bowls of olives, black, green, and brined with herbs. Together, they make a simple meal. You nibble slowly, savoring the salty tang. Nuts, fruits, and sweet treats. Markets overflow with fruits, pomegranates, figs, dates, and grapes. You try a ripe fig, sweet and sticky. A rare treat. You see children running with half-eaten pomegranates, juice dripping down their chins. Sweet honey is prized, drizzled on bread or stirred into drinks. Desserts aren't common for the poor, but you find a vendor selling small pastries filled with nuts and honey. You buy one, savoring its flaky crust and sticky sweetness. The challenge of meals. Meals aren't just about hunger. They're about ritual, class, and survival. You eat when you can, where you can, with what you can. Sometimes that means scraps. Sometimes it means sharing with strangers. You learn to eat quickly when you're hungry and slowly when you're not. Because in Constantinople, food is more than fuel. It's a reminder of what you have and what you don't. Evening and fasting. As night falls, the city grows quieter. You see people gathering in small groups, some preparing for evening prayers. Many will fast tomorrow. Religious fasting means no meat, no dairy, sometimes no oil. For the devout, it's a sacrifice. For you, it's just another reason to feel hungry. You find a quiet corner to rest your belly and your bones. You close your eyes. Tomorrow, you'll face it all again. The Byzantine family. Love, duty, and survival. After days wandering the bustling streets, breathing in smoke and spices, surviving fire and fear, you begin to understand that survival here isn't just about hunger or plague. It's about family. The house you call home, if you're lucky. Your shelter is a cramped apartment above a noisy bakery, or maybe a tiny room squeezed into the back of a crowded inn. Families here don't own large homes like the wealthy nobles. Most live in multi-room dwellings, stone or wood, packed with generations under one roof. The smell of cooking fires, fresh bread, and sometimes sickness fills the air. Walls are thin. You can hear every cough, every whispered argument, every child's cry. 3 generations under one roof. In your family, you might live with your parents, your children, and your aging grandparents. The old tell stories of the empire's glory days. Their voices crack with age and pride. Children run between legs, playing with scraps of string or bits of wood. Your mother wakes before dawn to prepare bread and stew. Your father leaves for the docks or the marketplace. Your eldest daughter helps care for younger siblings. Every member has a role. Marriage, not always about love. Marriage is a contract, arranged by parents, sometimes sealed with a dowry, a gift of coins, land, or goods. Love might come later, or it might not. A young bride moves into her husband's home, often years older or younger than her. She learns quickly how to keep peace, raise children, and respect the household gods. Men hold most of the power, but women run the home. You hear gossip at the fountain about marriages made for politics, alliances, and survival. Childbirth and childhood. Babies are miracles and dangers. Women give birth in small rooms filled with herbs and prayers. Midwives attend, reciting blessings and lighting candles. Child mortality is high. Sickness can strike suddenly, and superstition often shapes treatment. Children learn early how to survive, how to read signs, avoid danger, and obey. They are taught faith and duty above all. Work. Everyone has their place. Men work the docks, the workshops, the fields. Women manage the home, prepare food, and care for the sick. Children sweep, carry water, or deliver messages. Everyone's labor counts. If someone falters, the whole family feels it. Conflict and survival. Families argue. Disputes over money, honor, or loyalty are common. Sometimes these fights turn violent. You hear about neighbors stabbing each other over debts or insults. But family also protects. Clan ties are strong. Your survival depends on who you know. Faith holds families together. Religious festivals are family gatherings. Baptisms, weddings, funerals. Each ceremony reinforces bonds. Prayers are whispered for health and fortune. Icons are kissed. Faith is both shield and sword. The weight of duty. You realize living here means sacrificing for family. Long hours, hard labor, silent suffering, yet also moments of laughter, of joy, of hope. Because in Byzantium, family is the last refuge, the one thing worth fighting for. Festivals, faith, and feasts, the sacred calendar of Byzantium. By now, you've lived enough days in Constantinople to understand the rhythm of its suffering, hunger, labor, noise, and fear. But the Byzantine Empire isn't just hardship. There's also ritual. There's celebration. There's escape from the ordinary found in festivals so old no one remembers when they began. The city doesn't just endure. It prays. It sings. It feasts. And today, you'll experience that other side of life, the sacred and the strange. A city built around the calendar. In Byzantium, time is sacred. Every day, week, and month exists inside a framework of liturgical cycles, holy observances, saints' days, fasts, and feasts. Forget the modern Monday to Friday grind. Here, life orbits a sacred sun, Great Lent, and Holy Week in spring. Pascha Easter, the most luminous of all feasts. Celebrations of Christ's birth, Theotokos, and countless saints in between. The calendar is a tool for spiritual alignment and public spectacle. For the poor, it means breaks from labor. For the church, it means power. For the emperor, it means divine theater. Dawn before the feast. You're woken at dawn by the sound of bells, but not the harsh clang of warning these bells sing. It's the morning of a feast day. The streets are quieter, even the dogs bark less. Incense already hangs in the air. Women sweep thresholds. Men put on clean tunics, freshly washed in the cistern's water. You follow the scent of myrrh and burning oil toward a nearby church, one of the dozens dotting every neighborhood. Inside, the faithful have gathered. Candles flicker. Icons glimmer in the half-light. The liturgy begins, sung, not spoken. Melodies rise and fall like breath. You don't understand every word, but your body understands the rhythm. You feel calmer, lighter, like the city itself has paused to breathe. The fasting before feasting. The Byzantines are no strangers to restraint. For nearly half the year, various forms of fasting are observed. No meat, no dairy, no oil. Sometimes not even water before communion. You've already felt hunger, but fasting here is a discipline, not a punishment. It's meant to cleanse the body and humble the soul. Before every major feast is a period of fasting, sometimes 40 days, which is why today matters so much. After fasting comes feasting. The food of the holy day. You smell it before you see it. Roasted meat. You haven't had meat in days, maybe longer. Today, the markets gleam with food not meant for survival, but celebration, roasted lamb seasoned with garlic and mint. Fresh bread, risen and golden. Fish caught this morning and grilled whole. Stewed lentils with olive oil and honeyed onions. Stuffed grape leaves served on carved wooden plates. Cheeses, creamy or sharp, shared with pride. Even the poorest households stretch their coins to offer something special. You're invited to sit with a family you helped carry water for days ago. They pass you a bowl, warm stew, bread, olives, figs. It tastes like forgiveness. Music and movement. Later that day, music fills the air. A group of women sing ancient hymns, melodies passed down for centuries. In the courtyard of a monastery, men begin a slow, circling dance. They move with grace and solemn joy, a prayer made of motion. Children join in, laughing, barefoot. Even old men clap, forgetting their aches. Someone passes a cup of wine, sweetened with mulled herbs. You sip, dizzy not from the drink, but from the feeling of belonging. Just for today. The rich and the righteous. You hear a procession coming from the Blasherny district, where wealth lives behind marble walls. Priests in golden vestments march beside noblewomen in silks. A relic is carried, a piece of a saint's cloak, or maybe a splinter of the true cross. People kneel as it passes. You do too. It's not about belief. It's about place. In the Byzantine Empire, faith is political, personal, and performative. To kneel is to survive. The power of icons. Throughout the day, you see people press their foreheads to icons, images of saints painted on wood. They're not just decorations. They're gateways. A poor woman touches one with trembling fingers, whispering the name of her sick child. A soldier kisses another before leaving for the Anatolian front. You stare into the eyes of a painted saint, serene, eternal, and feel watched. But not in fear, in something close to comfort. Night prayers and holy fire. As the sun begins to set, a vigil begins. People light candles at doorways. The streets glow. Chants echo from open church doors. Some people stay awake all night, praying by flame. You join them for a time, your mind drifting in the rhythm of voices and shadows. A monk offers you bread and water. He says nothing, but his eyes seem to know everything. The morning after. By dawn, the city feels lighter. Even the stone looks cleaner. The feasting is over. The fire fades. But the memory stays. You walk back to your shelter with crumbs in your pocket and candle wax on your sleeve. And for the first time in days, you feel something you forgot was possible, hope. Crime, punishment, and Byzantine justice. How law kept the empire standing or didn't. In the Byzantine Empire, a man might fear plague, poverty, or fire. But the sharpest fear of all, justice. Because in Constantinople, law is not just law. It's scripture, it's spectacle, it's survival. The empire of laws. Byzantium was, above all else, an empire of codified rule. From the days of Justinian in the 6th century onward, laws were collected, clarified, and brutally enforced. Justinian's corpus juris civilis, the body of civil law, was more than a set of rules. It was a vision of order, divinely inspired, preserved by parchment, and upheld by steel. Everyone, from the noble in his marble atrium to the beggar at the city gates, lived under its reach. Law in theory. In theory, the Byzantine system was elegant. There were magistrates who administered local justice, urban prefects who maintained the peace, judges trained in the interpretation of imperial law, and, ultimately, the emperor, the final source of all authority. The empire prided itself on its rationality, its continuity with the Roman tradition. Laws governed marriage, commerce, theft, murder, land, inheritance, debt, heresy, sorcery, adultery, blasphemy, and more. There were laws about how to write laws, but as you soon learn, theory and practice lie far apart. Crime in the streets. It starts small, a stolen purse in the market. You watch as a young boy lifts a coin pouch from an unsuspecting pilgrim. He runs. The man shouts. 2 guards appear, not imperial soldiers, but city watchmen armed with short clubs and long suspicion. They chase him into an alley. You hear a grunt, then silence. The boy doesn't come back. No one asks where he went. Justice in practice. What happens next is harder to forget. Later that day, a man is accused of cheating weights at a bread stall. You're nearby. The accuser shouts, "He used stones in the bottom of the scale." A crowd forms. Guards arrive. But they don't drag him to court. Not immediately. Instead, they take him to a public square. There, a magistrate listens, stern-faced, sun-baked, surrounded by scrolls and scribes. The man pleads his case. The merchant insists. Neighbors argue. The magistrate listens, then points. The man is whipped, right there. Publicly, swiftly, no trial, no delay, 100 lashes. The crowd disperses. The merchant keeps selling. Spectacle of punishment. Public punishment is a performance. It's meant to terrify, not rehabilitate. Common methods include flogging bare back tied to a post, mutilation, noses, ears, hands, branding, letters burned into flesh, e.g. TH for thief, blinding, often used on traitors or rivals to ensure they can never rule. Exile, forced relocation, often to desolate islands or border provinces. You see a man carried through the street. His nose is missing. Blood crusts where flesh used to be. His crime, speaking ill of a city official, he can no longer smell flowers or danger, but everyone else smells fear. The courts and the crowd. Sometimes trials do occur, especially for serious or politically sensitive crimes. You sneak into a basilica that's been converted into a courtroom. Two noblemen are arguing over a disputed vineyard. They speak in complex, legal Greek. Scribes write rapidly. Clerics observe. A judge sits in austere silence. You understand little, but one thing is clear in this room: words are weapons. A clever argument, a well-placed bribe, a forged letter, these mean more than truth. And outside the doors, peasants wait with bruised faces and broken fingers. Their justice. Slower, if it comes at all. Bribes, favors, and justice. You hear a saying whispered in the taverns. The law is a net, but the rich fly through it, and the poor are caught. If you know the right monk, you can delay your sentence. If you pay the right eunuch, you can erase your crime. If you embarrass the wrong official, you might lose your tongue. One night, you hear of a priest accused of heresy. He disappears. No trial, just silence. The church says nothing. The people say he should have kept his sermons shorter. Imperial mercy. Or not. Rarely, the emperor himself intervenes. He might pardon a traitor or punish a rival. Sometimes mercy is strategic, meant to show divine grace. Other times, it's cruelty in golden robes. You hear of a general who returned from victory in the east. Popular. Too popular. The emperor congratulated him, gave him wine, then had him blinded in his sleep. He was too great a risk. In Byzantium, justice and power are twins, and paranoia is their mother. Church and state. Strange bedfellows. The church has its own courts, its own laws, its own prisons. A bishop might protect a thief inside a chapel, invoking sanctuary. A monk might judge a blasphemer more harshly than a thief. You hear of a woman accused of sorcery. She healed a sick child, they say, using herbs and prayers not found in scripture. She is tried not by the city, but by a synod of monks. They strip her bare. Question her for hours, declare her a heretic. She is sent to a convent forever. Magic, sorcery, and superstition. Witchcraft is real to the Byzantines, not just metaphorically. Amulets are worn against evil eyes. Herbs are used to bind a lover. Whispers circulate about men who speak to the dead. The law is clear, divination is illegal. Astrology, if unapproved, is heresy. Love potions, treasonous. You see a man arrested for possessing scrolls of astrology. He screams that he only wanted to know the future. The magistrate says, "The future belongs to God, not you." He is publicly flogged, his scrolls burned. Prisons, a waiting room for despair. You're told not to get arrested in Constantinople, not because the punishment is immediate, but because the prisons are worse. Dark, damp, infested, no beds, no fresh water, chains rusting in stone walls. Men go mad in the dark. A friend you made in the docks is taken in for debt. You try to visit him. A guard laughs. He's already dead, and he doesn't even know it. Justice, or just order. Byzantine justice isn't about fairness. It's about stability, order, hierarchy. Fear, if you're a nobody, justice is sharp and fast. If you're powerful, it's slow and negotiable. If you're clever, it's avoidable. But always, always, it serves the empire. That night, you dream of judges. That night, you lie awake on your straw mat. You dream of scrolls unrolling into the sea, of judges with no eyes, scribes with no tongues, of men tied to marble columns while statues watch in silence. You wake with your heart pounding. You have not broken a law, not yet. But in Byzantium, sometimes survival itself feels illegal. A day in the life, hour by hour in the Byzantine Empire. The city sleeps, or pretends to. Midnight in Constantinople. A thick, damp silence wraps around the sleeping city like a wool blanket soaked in oil. The air is still, not clean, but still, and even the dogs are silent. Somewhere far away, a baby cries. But in your cramped quarters, a single room shared with your siblings and parents, above a tannery that reeks of urine and animal skin, you remain still, curled beneath coarse linen. The fire in the brazier has long since died. There's no light except what filters through cracks in the shuttered windows, moonlight slipping across the tiled rooftops and into alleyways where rats scurry like nervous thieves. But the city isn't truly asleep, not all of it. Guards still patrol the city's major roads. Thieves, too. So do lovers, and those exiled from sleep by pain, sickness, or fear. You hear footsteps in the alley. You don't move. If it's a thief, you don't want him to think you're awake. If it's a guard, you don't want to explain why you are. This is how the city breathes when no one's watching. The monks begin. While the rest of the city clings to slumber, there is one place fully awake, the monastery. Inside the stone walls of a nearby convent, monks and nuns are rising for the midnight office, Messenectican. It's not a choice. This is life. Candles are lit. Feet shuffle along cold stone. Robes are pulled tight against the pre-dawn chill. Chanting begins, long, slow, melodic syllables echoing through the domed chapel. It's not beautiful in the modern sense. It's something else, ancient, rooted. The city has heard this same chant for centuries. You, tossing in your straw bed, hear faint threads of the song drifting through the window. It's strangely calming. The monks are awake. The city is watched over. God listens. You sleep again. Laborers rise. Before the sun cracks the sky, life begins again. You're shaken awake by your father's cough, rough, wet, and familiar. Your mother is already up, stoking the hearth with last night's ash and a few twigs she saved from the firewood pile. The room smells like smoke and sweat. You rise slowly. No time for dreams. No breakfast yet. Only tasks. Your brother fills the water jug. Your sister scrubs the cooking pot with a rag that's more whole than cloth. You begin wrapping your feet in cloth, your only protection inside your worn sandals. The tannery will expect your father before sunrise. You've been assigned to help unload carts at the docks today, a rare job that pays in actual coin rather than fish bones or favors. You don't complain. You're lucky. The bread queue. You arrive at the baker's stall in the Forum of Constantine, one of many scattered throughout the city. The Annona system, a government-subsidized grain distribution model inherited from Rome, still functions here in theory. If your family is registered properly, you're entitled to discounted loaves. You stand in line behind dockworkers, widows, elderly men with missing fingers, and barefoot children clutching clay tokens. You offer your chit and receive 2 loaves, dense, dark, made of barley and rough flour. You tear off a piece and chew it as you walk. It tastes like survival. On feast days, the bread comes with olives or a smear of fish paste. Today, it's just bread, but it's warm, and for a moment, that's enough. Doors open, streets fill. The sun begins to rise, turning the Bosphorus into a silver ribbon and gilding the domes of the great churches, Hagia Sophia chief among them. Shops open. Doors swing wide. Artisans begin their labors, shoemakers cutting leather, silversmiths melting coin and hammering rings, scribes sharpening reed pens. You walk past a barber's stall where a man is getting his beard singed clean with a heated wire. Nearby, a boy chases a chicken through an alley while women gossip at the fountain. You hear the same argument you hear every week, whether the emperor still favors the blues or the greens in the hippodrome. You don't care. You care that your job starts in 15 minutes and the foreman doesn't like late arrivals. Work at the docks. You arrive at the harbor of Theodosius, already teeming with life. Ships unload amphorae of oil, crates of Egyptian papyrus, sacks of grain from the Black Sea, casks of garum from the Aegean, and bales of silk hidden beneath coarse cloth. Your task: lift, carry, stack, repeat. There's little talking. The overseer shouts instructions and the stevedores grunt in response. You sweat through your tunic within the first hour. Your hands blister quickly, but you've learned not to show pain. You share space with slaves, freedmen, Armenians, Greeks, Syrians, Jews, and even the occasional Viking mercenary helping offload crates. It's not a place of order. It's a place of motion. Coins are exchanged. Deals are whispered. You see one man slip a scroll under his robe too quickly to be innocent. You look away. It's not your business. The first meal. Finally, a break. You sit on a crate with two others, a bald man named Sergios and a younger boy whose name you don't know. Someone hands you a bowl, lentils, and onions with a bit of wine vinegar drizzled on top. You dip a chunk of morning bread into the mush. It's filling, salty, good. Sergios tells a story about how he once met a eunuch from the imperial palace who paid him 10 gold solidi to deliver a sealed message to a monk in Galata. You don't ask what was in the message. You just nod and keep eating. Overhead, the seagulls scream. You have 15 minutes before the shouting resumes. Back to work, and a surprise. You return to the harbor and are immediately directed toward a foreign merchant ship, Persian, you think. They're unloading carved boxes filled with incense and bolts of patterned silk. You've never seen silk like this before, blood red, trimmed with gold thread and shaped with peacocks and strange animals. A small crowd gathers to watch. A young noblewoman, veiled in expensive linen, passes by and stares at the bolts. The Persian merchant bows low. She doesn't speak. Her servant does the haggling. You keep your head down, but you can't help but glance back once, just once, to see her looking at you. Then she's gone. You pick up another crate and feel your spine crack. The sun hits the streets. Midday in Constantinople. The sun hangs heavy over the city like a polished bronze shield. You can feel it on your scalp, your shoulders, the backs of your hands. There's no escaping it. The docks boil in light. So do the market squares, courtyards, and tenement rooftops. The fishmonger across the street from your post is swatting flies and shouting the day's deals: red mullet, salted mackerel, and something he swears is dolphin. No one believes him, but someone buys it anyway. Behind the fishmonger, you see a group of laborers dragging an ox that refuses to move. The animal bellows. The street smells of sweat, garlic, and hot stone. A glimpse of power. Word spreads quickly. A member of the imperial court is passing through the harbor. You and the others are told to stand aside, lower your heads, and not speak unless spoken to. The procession is small but unmistakable. 4 guards in gleaming lamellar armor, 2 eunuchs dressed in dark blue robes, and a man with a long, curled beard and a sash of gold thread. His nose is long and thin. His fingers are stained with ink. A logothete, one of the empire's administrators. Possibly the logothete of the Genican, the financial ministry. He's here to inspect tariffs, or smuggle news, or both. You don't know, you don't ask. One glance from his narrowed eyes is enough to freeze your thoughts. He says nothing. But his presence says everything. You are small, and watched, and replaceable. Heat and holy fear. The bell tower of a nearby church tolls once, a low, heavy clang that rolls over the harbor like a wave. The foreman claps his hands. Time to work again. You spend the next hour unloading sacks of grain from a barge, each one heavier than the last. Your back burns. Your feet blister. A friend from your building, Alexios, is working the same dock. He jokes that he's starting to miss Lent because at least then he's too hungry to notice the pain. Then he stops. He points toward the sky. Far above the harbor, behind the Hagia Sophia's massive dome, a column of black smoke begins to rise. "Fire!" he mutters. Everyone looks. No one moves. Not yet. Panic in the breeze. The fire spreads quickly, not to the harbor, but to a row of shops near the old chalk gate. The wind carries it. People scream. Bells ring again, more urgently. You're ordered to stay where you are. The harbor must keep moving. Ships must keep unloading. "Let God handle the flames," the foreman says, but Alexios slips away, and so do you. You run through alleys thick with smoke and ash. Children cry. Women carry jugs of water from public fountains. Priests hold up icons, chanting blessings against the fire. It isn't your neighborhood, but it could have been. By the time the flames are doused, buckets, prayers, and luck, 3 homes are gone, and no one speaks of it again. A moment of stillness. Exhausted, you collapse in the shade behind a cistern wall. A woman nearby is washing blood from a bandage. A cat laps water from a broken bowl. Above you, the sky remains clear as if nothing happened. A monk walks by barefoot, murmuring verses. He smells like sweat and rose oil. You close your eyes. For 5 minutes, you're no one, not a laborer, not a citizen, just a body on stone. You don't sleep, but you drift. And when you rise, something has shifted. You survived the day's hottest hours. That's no small thing. Home again, for now. You return home, a narrow stone building wedged between a bathhouse and a dye shop. Inside, your mother is steeping herbs in vinegar, thyme, oregano, maybe something bitter you can't name. Your little sister is picking lice from her hair. The neighbor next door is screaming again about a debt unpaid. You pull off your tunic and wash your hands in a shared bucket. The water is cloudy. You don't care. The sun begins to soften. The walls feel less angry. The evening meal. Dinner is barley porridge with dried figs and onions. Your mother saved some honey from a neighbor. She adds a spoonful to your bowl. You eat in silence. Only the youngest children talk. They don't yet know the rhythm of exhaustion. When the meal ends, your father says a quick prayer. No thanks is given to the emperor, only to God. Evening prayers and family business. As dusk approaches, the neighborhood changes again. Men light oil lamps. Women sweep thresholds. Children bring laundry inside. In your home, your father pulls out a tiny icon of St. Demetrios, protector of soldiers and the city. He lights a wick in a shallow dish of olive oil. You all kneel, even your skeptical older brother. No one speaks during the prayer. When it ends, your mother presses her hand to your forehead. You don't pull away. Whispers and news. A neighbor drops by, a woman named Eleni whose son works in the imperial stables. She carries gossip like others carry coin. The empress has a new eunuch. A nobleman was found dead in the bathhouse. There's talk of plague in Galata. A new tax is coming on soap. Your father grunts. Your mother sighs. Eleni leaves with a small pouch of dried lentils. Nothing is free, not even stories. The city at twilight. The sky turns violet and gold as the sun dips behind the Sea of Marmara. Constantinople transforms again. The loud becomes soft. The busy becomes still. From your window, you can see the flickering glow of the Hagia Sophia's lanterns. Chants drift on the wind. The tavern across the alley begins to fill, not with laughter, but with quiet desperation. Men drink to forget the day, or to gather courage for tomorrow. A secret meeting. Your brother disappears after dark. He doesn't say where he's going, you don't ask. But later you follow, you're curious, you're cautious. You find him in a courtyard behind an abandoned bathhouse. 10 others are gathered. A monk is speaking, not in Latin, not in Greek, but in something older. Syriac, Armenian. You catch fragments, justice, corruption, the end of days. It's not blasphemy, but it's close. You slip away before the prayer ends. Some secrets are too heavy for hungry hands. Winding down. Back home, your sister sleeps curled beside the stove. Your mother snores softly. Your father is still awake, repairing a sandal with thick thread. He doesn't speak, but he nods at you. You sit beside him, not to help, just to share the silence. Lock the door. Before bed, you place the wooden beam across the door. It's not strong, but it's something. The streets outside are quiet now. No shouts, no fire, just the occasional whisper of wind. You lie down and close your eyes. You think of the day, the sweat, the bread, the blood, the heat, the chant. You don't dream, you're too tired for that. The empire sleeps again. And so ends another day, one of thousands. No records will mention your name, no statues will carry your likeness. But you lived, you endured. You kept faith with the rhythms of Byzantium, and tomorrow you'll rise again. Byzantine medicine and the dark art of healing. You wake up sick. It starts before dawn. You wake from uneasy dreams with a heat behind your eyes and a tremor in your fingers. Your skin is clammy. Your mouth tastes of iron. You try to sit up and feel the world tilt sideways. You're not just tired. You're ill. In the Byzantine Empire, this means more than inconvenience. It means risk. It means danger. It means the beginning of a long, uncertain journey through medicine, magic, and prayer. There are doctors in Constantinople, but there are also monks, midwives, herbalists, bone setters, and charlatans. And before any of them sees you, your family will do what every family does first, they pray. Step 1. The saints must know. Your mother lights a small candle at the icon of St. Pantaleon, the patron of physicians and the sick. She whispers your name. Then she pricks her finger with a needle and dabs her blood onto a tiny scrap of cloth. She tucks it beneath the icon. A gift, a sign, a request. Next, she sends your sister to the local church with a copper coin. The priest accepts it with a weary nod. You are added to the prayers of the day, but no one expects the saints to do all the work. Even miracles need assistance. The physician arrives. If you are fortunate and your family just rich enough, a physician is called. He arrives before midday, dressed not like a healer but like a scholar, a dark blue robe, a belt of woven leather, ink stains on his sleeves, and a small bag of instruments that jingle as he moves. His name is Demetrios, and he studied medicine in both Constantinople and Antioch. He quotes Galen. He invokes Hippocrates. He carries a copy of the Iatrosophion, a Byzantine medical manual that blends ancient wisdom with Christian theology. He pulls up a stool beside your mat. He does not smile. Diagnosis, the Byzantine way. Demetrios begins with observation. He studies your face, the color of your tongue, the smell of your breath. He asks questions not just about symptoms, but about dreams. Have you seen dogs in your sleep? Do you wake with a dry throat or a cold nose? Does your urine steam when you relieve yourself? He checks your pulse, not for speed, but for rhythm. He listens to your stomach. He feels behind your ears. He asks about your last bath, not for hygiene, but to judge the balance of your humors. Because in Byzantine medicine, all illness is rooted in imbalance. The 4 humors. The body, Demetrios explains, though you've heard it before, is governed by 4 fluids, blood warm and wet, associated with air, life, energy. Phlegm cold and wet, linked to water and passivity. Yellow bile hot and dry, like fire, temperamental and forceful. Black bile cold and dry, connected to earth, melancholy, and decay. Too much of one, illness. Too little of another, illness. The solution, restore balance, sometimes through diet, sometimes through surgery, sometimes through bleeding. You hope it's not bleeding, you've seen what that looks like. Bloodletting begins. But Demetrios frowns. Your cheeks are too red, your voice too hoarse, your dreams too vivid. He concludes your blood is in excess, your body overheated and corrupted. He orders a bloodletting. Your mother weeps quietly. Your father fetches the kitchen knife, but Demetrios waves him off. He opens his bag and removes a bronze lancet. It's curved and dark with use. He selects your inner elbow, ties a cord above it to raise the veins, and mutters a short prayer to St. Luke. Then he cuts, not deep, but deep enough. The blood flows into a shallow ceramic bowl, swirling dark, then lighter, then nearly black. Demetrios watches closely. When the color shifts to something like wine, he stops. He applies a rag soaked in vinegar and binds the wound with cloth. You are dizzy, but not dead. He seems pleased. Next, the potion. Your next treatment is a warm draught of oxymel, a blend of vinegar, honey, and water, meant to cleanse the throat and balance the stomach. He adds a pinch of powdered myrrh, a shaving of dried fig, and a strange, sticky resin that smells like old trees. You drink slowly. It burns. He tells you to rest, keep warm, and avoid bread, wine, fish, and figs. You ask what's left. He doesn't laugh. The herbalists visit. Later that day, once Demetrios is gone, your grandmother insists on calling her own healer, a woman named Thecla who gathers plants from the hills near the city walls. Thecla arrives barefoot, with a sack of roots and a string of tiny bones tied around her neck. She does not knock. She walks straight to you and places a hand on your forehead. She hums. Then she opens her bag. Inside, dried rue, hyssop, mint, cinnamon bark, yarrow, crushed almonds, sage, and something black and wriggling. She makes a paste with olive oil and presses it to your chest. Then she places a lead amulet over your heart, etched with unfamiliar symbols. Your father disapproves, but he says nothing. Because last spring, when your uncle had fever and pus in his throat, no physician could save him, but Thecla could. Angels or demons. Not all believe your illness is natural. Your neighbor stops by with a warning. The girl down the alley has been seen whispering to rats. She may have cast the evil eye. Your mother spits on the threshold and ties a red thread to the window. It's not superstition. It's protection. At night, your brother hangs a piece of blessed bread above your door, stolen from the altar after Mass. No one speaks of this the next day, but the bread stays there for a week. The bathhouse debate. By the third day, you are stronger. The fever has passed, though the cough remains. Your father says it's time for a bath. Your mother says absolutely not. Public bathhouses are a source of illness, gossip, and corruption. Your grandmother agrees. Your father says the warm water will balance your humors. You're caught in the middle. Eventually, they compromise. You are bathed at home in lukewarm water infused with herbs and lemon peel. You smell like a monastery garden. You feel alive again, but not safe. Cleanliness, faith, and fear. Byzantines do bathe, not daily, not lavishly, but regularly. Cleanliness is linked to health, but too much bathing, that's suspicious, effeminate, sinful even. You hear of a man who bathes every day in rose oil and wears silk even to market. They say he's either a eunuch, a spy, or worse, a heretic. Better to be plain. Better to smell of ash and bread than risk attention. Your body is not yours. It is your soul's house. It must not be too comfortable. Surgery by candlelight. Your cough fades, but your uncle is not so lucky. His leg wound, a deep cut from a cart axle, has festered. The skin is blackened. The smell is unbearable. They call Demetrios again. But this time he doesn't bring his lancet. He brings a saw. Surgery in Byzantium is a last resort, an act of desperation. An assault on the body, justified only when the alternative is certain death. There is no anesthesia, only wine and faith. Your uncle drinks deeply, his eyes glassy. Then two men hold him down while Demetrios begins. The saw cuts slowly. Too slowly. Your uncle screams once, then vomits, then loses consciousness. You are sent outside. The screams continue anyway. Cautery and the eye. In another home across town, a woman suffers from trachoma, a painful eye infection common in the empire. Her physician takes a red-hot metal rod and presses it against her eyelid. The stench of burning flesh rises. She does not move. Her family chants psalms. The cautery tool, shaped like a tiny spatula, is believed to destroy the corruption in the eye. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the patient loses sight entirely. There is no middle ground. Madness and malachia. There are words for madness in the Byzantine world. Mania for the violent, the enraged. Malachia for those who grow soft, weak in spirit. Melancholia for those who retreat into silence. But few physicians claim to understand the mind. If your thoughts unravel, they call a priest before they call a doctor. Demons are blamed more often than disease. The church recommends fasting, holy water, and isolation. Some monasteries allow the afflicted to live in small stone rooms beside the chapel, called reclusoriums, where the only interaction is with a priest who speaks through a small window. If they scream, the window is closed. If they weep, they are told to pray harder. Possession or punishment. You hear a story in the market. A boy who could not stop laughing, who laughed in church, during funerals, even while sleeping, was taken to the monastery of St. Lazaro's. There, the monks shaved his head, anointed him with oil, and tied him to a column. They read from the Psalms. They lit incense. They beat him with a vine branch dipped in wine. After 7 days, he stopped laughing. He also stopped speaking. No one calls it healing, but no one questions it either. The corpse problem. Dissection is rare. The human body is considered sacred, made in the image of God. To cut it open is blasphemy. But some whisper that physicians like Demetrios have seen inside corpses anyway, in secret, beneath monasteries, or in military camps during war. They learn from the dead to save the living. But if discovered, such acts risk excommunication, or worse. So they keep to the texts Galen, Dioscorides, or Abasius, books written centuries before. Books filled with diagrams, not bodies. They guess, they extrapolate, and they pray. Sometimes it's enough. Diagnosis by urine. The next time you fall ill, there is no bloodletting. This time, Demetrios asks for your urine. You provide it in a small glazed jar. He holds it up to the window light, squints and examines the color, the clarity, the bubbles, the sediment. Urine is the mirror of the soul, he says. Clear and pale, weakness. Yellow and foamy, heat in the liver, dark and thick, fever, red or cloudy, trouble in the heart. He declares your humors are turbid but not dangerous. You are given a syrup of figs and wine. You are told to avoid women for a week. You are confused, but you do as told. Remedies from nature. Byzantine medicine trusts not just in the divine and the philosophical, but also in the natural. There are scrolls filled with recipes, crushed ants mixed with vinegar for ringworm goose fat, and rose petals for burns, pounded pearls dissolved in wine for fainting spells, dried bees, and honey for mouth ulcers, ground lizard tail for nightmares, snake skin to protect against infertility. These are not jokes. They are serious medicine. Your mother keeps her own pouch of herbs under the mattress. She doesn't know the Latin names, but she knows what works. Most of the time. The Church of Healing, blending faith and flesh. The most famous healing in Constantinople isn't found in a hospital. It's found in the Church of the Theotokos at Blasherny. Pilgrims come from across the empire to touch the sacred spring beneath its altar. They drink the water. They bathe in it. Some take home vials of it and dab it on wounds or sprinkle it over graves. Miracles are recorded on tablets lining the church walls. A blind man who saw again. A cripple who walked. A dying child who rose. Physicians like Demetrios scoff, but quietly. Because even he has been known to leave offerings there, just in case. Women healers, quiet power. In public, medicine is male. But behind closed doors, women rule the sick room. Mothers, grandmothers, widows, they hold the knowledge passed down from womb to womb. They brew teas. They massage joints. They stitch wounds. They soothe fevers. There are even women surgeons in Constantinople, rare but respected, especially among the Armenian and Jewish communities. They treat other women. They handle births. They reduce dislocated limbs with speed and skill. But they do not write books. They do not teach in schools. Their names are not recorded. Still they heal, and they are remembered. If not by history, then by the living. Medicine at the end. When death approaches, when no tea, no prayer, no relic can halt the shadow, a different kind of healer is summoned. A spiritual elder. He brings a candle, a small cross, a cloth soaked in myrrh. He speaks softly to the patient. He anoints the feet, then the hands, then the brow. He asks if they have unspoken sins, if they've wronged anyone, if they are ready. If the patient is silent, the elder takes their hand and recites the prayer for a holy death. sometimes that's all there is left to give. The legacy of Byzantine medicine. When you recover, and you do, this time you think back on what healed you. Was it the bloodletting? The prayer, the herbs, the powdered pearls, the silence of your room at night? You don't know, no one ever really knows. Byzantine medicine is not about certainty, it's about balance, about ritual, about surviving long enough to try again. You rise from your mat, you breathe deeply. Your mother brings you a cup of warm wine, you drink, and you forget, until the next illness comes. Sex, shame, and purity in the Byzantine mind. You awake with the dawn. The soft light filtering through your window catches dust in the air, the city still quiet outside. In your chest, a slow, steady rhythm, your heartbeat, reminds you of the body you carry, this fragile vessel of flesh and spirit. In the Byzantine Empire, the body was more than just flesh and bone. It was a battleground, a sacred temple, a mirror of the soul, and above all, a source of temptation and danger. Desire was natural, yes, but it was also dangerous. It needed control, it needed discipline. The church taught that the body could be the path to holiness or to damnation. You learned early pleasure could lead to sin. Sin could lead to shame. Shame stained the soul, and purity was the goal. A shining light in the dark, the prize of saints and sinners alike. The body as a temple and a trap. Your teachers told you that the body was made by God, good, but fallen. The flesh was a creation of divine will, but also a source of temptation. To desire was human. To desire without control was to fall. St. Paul's words echoed in every corner of the empire. Do not let sin reign in your mortal body. From childhood, you were warned. The eyes, the mouth, the hands, all could betray you. Lust lurked in a glance, sin in a touch. The church preached moderation in all things. Marriage was sacred, but even within it, desire was to be restrained, expressed only for the purpose of procreation. Sex outside marriage was a crime against God and community. The sin of lust and the fear of shame. The word lust was more than physical craving. It was a spiritual disease, a poison infecting the heart and mind. Stories were told of men who lost everything to lust, their wealth, their families, even their souls. Women who gave in to passion risked exile or worse. Confession was a difficult and humiliating ritual. Priests asked detailed questions about thoughts, dreams, actions. To admit sin was to expose your shame to God and by extension to the community. Some chose silence, burying their desires deep. Others confessed and prayed for forgiveness, but shame lingered like a shadow. The role of marriage and the church's view. Marriage was the only socially accepted outlet for desire. It was a contract between families, communities, and God. Sex within marriage was permitted, even expected, but it was never to be excessive. The church set rules about frequency, timing, no sex on holy days, and conduct. Honeymoon, no such thing. Passion was to be tempered with duty. Love poems and stories warned against wild passion. The ideal was self-control and chastity within marriage. Chastity as virtue and power. Chastity was praised as a virtue for both men and women. Monks and nuns took vows of celibacy, cutting themselves off from the temptations of the flesh to pursue holiness. But even laypeople were urged to practice chastity, to avoid unnecessary temptation. Virginity was exalted, especially for women. Saints' lives were full of tales of miraculous purity. Chastity was believed to bring spiritual strength and divine favor. It was a shield against evil. The body and sin in daily life. The marketplace, the bathhouses, the streets, all places where the body's temptations tested the faithful. Bathhouses were both cleansing and dangerous. They could lead to gossip, temptation, and sin. Men and women had separate hours or different facilities. Even so, stories abounded of liaisons begun in warm pools and steamy rooms. Clothing was modest. Women covered their hair and arms. Men wore tunics that reached the knees. To expose too much skin was a sin. The fear of the evil eye and magic. Desire and jealousy could attract malevolent forces. The evil eye was a real threat. You hear tales of women using amulets to protect their chastity. Priests blessed herbs and water to ward off curses. Magic and prayer were intertwined in daily life. Protecting the purity of the body was as much spiritual as physical. Dreams and the secret life of desire. People believed that dreams revealed hidden desires and sins. Nightmares of lustful acts were signs of spiritual struggle. Confessions sometimes included descriptions of dreams. You might dream of forbidden kisses or secret meetings and wake with guilt heavy in your chest. But some believed dreams could be warnings, or even tests. The double standard and gender. Women bore the brunt of sexual shame. A woman's honor was tied to her chastity. A man's reputation could survive many indiscretions. Women suspected of promiscuity were ostracized, sometimes punished. But men's desires were often seen as natural impulses needing guidance. This imbalance shaped social relations and marriages. The path forward. In this world, navigating desire was a careful balance. Faith was the compass. Shame was the warning light. Purity was the distant shore everyone hoped to reach. You lay back down. The day's lessons settle in your mind. You close your eyes and try to sleep. The weight of confession. In the Byzantine world, sin was never private. It hung in the air like a shadow. To carry shame alone was dangerous for the soul and the community. The church demanded confession, a ritual cleansing of the heart. The priest, seated in his small chamber, awaited you behind a screen. You knelt. You spoke your sins aloud, desires, thoughts, actions, every detail mattered. Even dreams were laid bare. The priest listened without judgment, or so it seemed. He pronounced penance, fasting, prayers, alms, or public acts of humility. Saints as models of purity. The lives of saints were examples to follow. Saint Theodora, empress and penitent who repented publicly for sins. Saint Euphemia, a virgin martyr who chose death over defilement. Their stories were told to children at bedtime. They were reminders that purity was possible, even heroic. Saints who fought lust with prayer, fasting, and miracles. Byzantine laws on sexual behavior. Imperial laws were harsh. Adultery was punishable by exile, confiscation of property, or corporal punishment. Prostitution was legal but regulated, confined to specific districts. Homosexual acts were condemned, punishable by fines or worse. Sexual crimes were crimes against God and the emperor. Trials were public and humiliating. Punishments were designed to deter and shame. Eunuchs, neither here nor there. Eunuchs occupied a strange place. Neutered men who served as palace officials, guards, or chamberlains. They were both desired and despised. They could marry or remain celibate. Their ambiguous sexuality was both power and curse. They were trusted with secrets and the emperor's favor. Art, literature, and the flesh. Byzantine art rarely depicted the nude. The body was covered in layers of meaning. Icons showed saints with radiant halos, veiled and modest. But secular poetry whispered of longing and forbidden desires. Songs and stories circulated in taverns and marketplaces. The tension between spirit and flesh was everywhere. The endless struggle. Desire was not to be crushed, only controlled. The faithful walked a narrow path between repression and expression. Shame kept many silent. Purity remained a distant ideal, yet the body insisted on living, on feeling, on needing, and so life went on. The contract of marriage, more than love. In the Byzantine Empire, marriage was rarely about romance as we imagine it today. It was a carefully negotiated contract, a union of families, a pact binding social order and religious duty. You learned early that marriage was both a blessing and a burden, a means to produce heirs and maintain honor. Weddings were solemn affairs, blending Christian ritual with ancient customs. The bride wore a simple white robe, a symbol of purity, but behind that robe was a future filled with expectations and rules. The couple exchanged rings, vows were spoken, but the real work began after the ceremony. Marriage was the only acceptable outlet for sexual desire, but even within its bounds, desire had limits. Pleasure was permitted only when it served the purpose of procreation and was controlled by strict discipline. The role of women, guardians of purity. Women in Byzantium were seen as the keepers of the family's honor. Their chastity was not just a personal virtue, but a communal one, safeguarding the family's reputation and social standing. From childhood, girls were educated in modesty, their eyes lowered, their voices soft, their bodies covered. Marriage transformed a girl into a wife and then a mother, roles that demanded obedience, fidelity, and devotion. The expectations were clear: to be chaste before marriage, faithful after it, and obedient always. But women were not merely passive victims of these rules. Many found subtle ways to exercise power, managing households, influencing husbands, and navigating social networks. The everyday struggle between desire and duty. Daily life in Constantinople and beyond was filled with constant negotiation between flesh and spirit. In the marketplace, merchants whispered rumors about a merchant's wife's infidelity. In the bathhouses, stolen glances and secret smiles hinted at desires kept carefully hidden. Families policed behavior. Gossip was a powerful weapon. A woman's reputation could be destroyed by a single careless word. For men, the social consequences were often less severe, but not negligible. Even children learned early about shame and modesty, lessons delivered in hushed tones and through example. The church's influence on daily morality. The church was ever present, guiding, punishing, and forgiving. Priests reminded the faithful of the dangers of temptation and the path to redemption through confession and penance. Fasting was more than a spiritual exercise. It was a tool to discipline the body's desires. Holy days were filled with rules about abstaining from food, drink, and sexual relations. Violations were not taken lightly. Public penances could include wearing a sackcloth, standing in church during services, or even temporary exile. The shadow of adultery. Adultery was one of the gravest sins. Women caught in adultery risked exile, public humiliation, or worse. Their families might arrange swift marriages or religious confinement. Men, while also punished, could sometimes escape harsher penalties through influence or wealth. Trials for adultery were public spectacles, often involving humiliating questioning, witnesses, and punishments designed to shame and deter. Sexuality and power in the imperial court. The imperial court was a world apart, a place where power, desire, and secrecy mixed freely. Empresses like Theodora wielded immense influence, their personal lives scrutinized and mythologized. Eunuchs played complex roles here, their ambiguous gender status allowing them unique access and power. Court intrigues often revolved around love affairs, alliances, and betrayals, all entangled with the empire's politics. The quiet strength of women healers and midwives. Women's knowledge extended beyond chastity and obedience. Midwives and healers were respected figures, responsible for bringing new life into the world and protecting families from harm. Their skills were passed down through generations, combining practical knowledge with folk wisdom. They operated in a world where the body's secrets were both feared and revered. The ongoing battle within. Through all these layers, law, religion, family, and society, the individual lived with a constant tension. Desire was a natural force, but also a potential source of ruin. Shame was a warning, but also a prison. Purity was a shining ideal, often out of reach. And yet, life continued. You close your eyes, feeling the weight of centuries of beliefs settle around you. The story of sex, shame, and purity in Byzantium is a slow, quiet echo, a reminder of the complex dance between body and spirit. Eunuchs, between worlds and boundaries. In the intricate dance of Byzantine sexuality and power, eunuchs held a unique, often misunderstood position. Neither fully men nor women, They navigated a space both liminal and powerful. Castrated in youth or early adulthood, many served as trusted officials within the imperial court, guardians of the palace, and sometimes as the closest confidants to emperors. Their ambiguous status shielded them from accusations of lust and passion, making them ideal for sensitive roles, especially those involving the women of the palace. Yet, eunuchs were human, subject to desires and struggles like anyone else. Their bodies were marked by loss but also by influence. Stories circulate in Constantinople's taverns and streets, eunuchs who rose from slaves to powerful courtiers, eunuchs whose unfulfilled desires shaped court intrigues and alliances. They were both revered and reviled, symbols of purity and objects of suspicion. Art and the body, the silent dialogue. Byzantine art spoke volumes without words. Icons, frescoes, and mosaics rarely depicted the flesh in its raw form. Instead, bodies were clothed, stylized, often symbolically charged. The human form was a vessel for divine presence, a reflection of spiritual truth. Nudity was associated with shame or sin. The naked body appeared in scenes of judgment or martyrdom, never celebration. Yet beneath the surface, Byzantine poets, minstrels, and storytellers wove tales of love, longing, and forbidden passion. The tension between the visible and invisible, the sacred and the profane, created a rich cultural fabric. Pilgrimage, relics, and the quest for purity. Many Byzantines sought purity not just through law or morality, but through pilgrimage and the veneration of relics. Traveling to sacred sites, to touch a saint's bone or drink from holy springs, was believed to cleanse the soul and body alike. These journeys were arduous, filled with hardship and prayer. For many, they offered hope beyond earthly struggles with desire and shame. The spirit's triumph. In the end, Byzantine attitudes towards sex, shame, and purity were not merely about repression. They were about a deep, ongoing quest, the struggle between flesh and spirit, between earthly desires and heavenly aspirations. The body, with all its temptations, was also a temple. The soul, forever seeking light, struggled to shine through. For many, the path was not smooth. It was fraught with fear, doubt, and sorrow, but it was also filled with hope, discipline, and faith. As you lay down to sleep, consider this ancient world where every glance, every touch, every whispered thought carried weight far beyond itself. Where desire was both a gift and a danger, where purity was a beacon, where shame was both punishment and protection, and where, through it all, the human spirit sought to find its place between the body and the divine. Sleep now, and let the slow rhythms of history carry you into dreams. As our journey through the Byzantine world comes to a quiet close, take a deep breath. Let the echoes of ancient rituals and whispered confessions fade gently into silence. If you found peace in this slow unraveling of history, consider leaving a like or subscribing for more stories that soothe and stir the soul. And if there's a forgotten time or place you'd like to dream through next, leave a comment below. I read them all. Until next time, sleep well, and let history keep you company in the dark.